Okay, go ahead and get started with the muscular system. Before we get started, I want to make sure you all understand. I keep clarifying this, and I want to make sure I clarify it again. When you're doing the quiz, you cannot use answers that are not within the lab manual. All right, so I see a lot of answers that are really obscure, that are somewhat abstract and accurate, but they aren't within the lab manual. So I'm not trying to trick you. So the answers to the questions are from a word bank that you can use within your lab manual. So everything inside the objective lists. So looking at page 37, if I was asking a question regarding any of the three types of muscles microscopically, those are your three answers. So I could ask you what type of cell or what type of muscle is this, and you could put skeletal, smooth, or cardiac. If you put temporalis, like you thought it was part of the temporalis muscle, that's not right. It could have actually been from that, but I'm asking from this pool of questions, or of, I guess, just the pool. It's like a word bank within each objective list that you can use. So please be aware of that when you're taking these quizzes, and I'm not trying to trick you. It's just straight up from your lab manual. All right, let's get rolling then. So the lab manual goes from page 37 to page 41 for your muscular system topic here. It is a relatively dense couple pages, a lot of muscles. Don't get bogged down with the actions. Those are there for your information. I am concerned with you being able to identify the muscles as well as the structures of a muscle. So starting off with objective 1, you need to be able to distinguish between the three types of muscle. So we have cardiac muscle, which can be found in heart tissue. We're going to be contracting to pump blood in the heart. We have smooth muscle, which is going to be attaching, or it's going to be making up parts of the internal organs that you have. They'll contract to move food. They'll also be lining your blood vessels, like your arteries, to help change diameter for changing blood pressure. And then we have skeletal muscle, which is going to attach to the skeleton to provide strength and mobility. All the muscles that you're going to be looking at today for identification purposes will be skeletal muscles. So the structure of cardiac muscle is very distinguishable from the other two in that you find these intercalated discs. All right, so these are little non-contractile areas of the muscle that are going to be electrically inducing. So they're going to help induce a rhythmicity of the heartbeat. You'll find striations within cardiac muscle, as well as it being highly branched. So you see all these branches, it's kind of irregular looking, and they're connected by these intercalated discs. There's also only one nucleus, but I wouldn't use that as a framework because it's kind of difficult to tell with these smaller micrographs. Also, the heart is under involuntary control, so you cannot pump your heart by choice or slow it down. You can do meditation and mindfulness to try to slow it down, but you're not directly slowing your heart down. You're trying to clear your mind, and that ends up influencing your heart rate. Smooth muscle, also involuntary. All right, so it's composed of those muscle fibers that are going to be irregular as well as that cardiac tissue. So it's going to have some blood vessels and nerves and connective tissue kind of interwoven and around. Fibers are going to be spindle-shaped, single nuclei. I wouldn't use that as a distinguishing factor. There are no striations. It very much looks like that dense regular tissue when we were talking about that in our tissues section. Skeletal muscle looks like fish scales. So very regular striations, a ton of nuclei that are dense. So each one of these is a muscle cell. Okay, so all these little striations are within one muscle cell. These are the different protein fibers, actin and myosin, within the muscle cells. The fibers are long and cylindrical, and they're multinucleated, so they got lots of these nuclei in here. And these are under voluntary control. So your biceps muscle is a voluntary skeletal muscle that you can contract to bring your arm closer by flexing. All right. So now moving on to some identification of connective tissues within the skeletal muscle. So now we're ignoring our smooth muscle and cardiac muscle. We're just talking about skeletal muscles. We have these two different layers that you need to be able to recognize, called the endomysium and the epimysium. So when you think of endo, think of inside. So it's inside of a muscle cell. So we have a muscle cell here. So this is all one cell, and each muscle cell is composed of various myofibrils. In between the myofibrils is this endomysium. So it's encasing each muscle fiber here, and then in between the myofibrils. So this is one endomysium kind of covering the outside of that muscle fiber. In order to encase the entire muscle itself, so this could be like a bicep muscle containing multiple muscle cells, the epimysium, epi meaning above or outside, is going to be outside that muscle. All right, so not just one single cell, but the bundle of cells will be contained within epimysium. And the epimysium can be connected to a tendon. So we'll see a tendon here. This tendon would be then connected to a bone. So say your biceps being connected via a tendon to your humerus. Okay, so we'll see tendons containing or connecting muscles to bones. And they're very much a rope-like bundle of dense fibrous tissue. And then we have these aponeuroses. So aponeuroses are basically like tendons, but rather than a rope-like bundle, it's a sheet of this dense fibrous tissue. And it's still going to be connecting muscles to bone, but it's going to be a very wide area of attachment. So this is kind of like the external oblique here. So we have this sheet of dense fibrous connective tissue that's going to attach this external oblique to the underlying bones of the pelvis. So aponeuroses. Now we can start talking about some specific skeletal muscles. So I'm on page 38 right now of your lab manual, and I'm basically just going to go top down. So starting off, we have our occipitofrontalis. Can't really visualize it here very well, but it's what's going to be raising the eyebrows. Okay, so your occipitofrontalis muscle is going to be kind of above, just think about your eyebrows. Frontalis, frontal lobe that we learned about in the brain. It's going to be kind of in the front of the head here, helping raise the eyebrows. Then we have the orbicularis oculi. This one, you just got to look for oculi. When you think of like an oculi, think of eye, orbicularis, orbital, surrounding it. So it's going to surround the eye. All right, so this is a muscle that surrounds the eye to help close your eye. Then we have our zygomaticus. So we're just going to worry about the major one. Our zygomaticus is going to be near the zygomatic bone of your face. And so when you feel your cheekbone, that's your zygomatic bone, and the muscles that are going to provide attachment points for those are going to attach to the zygomatic and then to your lips on the outside to help close your or elevate and abduct your upper lip to smile. So zygomatic bone is going to be your zygomaticus muscle. Then we have our orbicularis oris. Oris, think of oral, your mouth. All right, so orbital, orbicularis, we're orbiting the mouth. So it's this circular muscle around the mouth to help close the lips. Then we have the masseter muscle. Your masseter muscle is going to be connected to your masseter bone. All right, so your masseter muscle is going to help close your jaw. So it's very much connected to that mandible of your jaw to help close it. Masseter, mandible, it's going to help close the jaw. Your temporalis is also going to help close the jaw, and it's not near the jaw, but if you kind of put your hands above your ears and then move your mouth up and down, I'm kind of doing it right now, it's kind of why I'm talking weird, you'll feel your temporalis muscle move. So temporalis, think of your temple, like getting hit in the temple, your temporal lobe, temporalis muscle around that temporal lobe. Okay. And lastly, we have this sternocleidomastoid. So the sternocleidomastoid is going to run from the back of the ear, sort of, to the collarbone. So it's going to help rotate your head as well as flex your neck and your head. So again, I'm saying all these actions just to try to make sense of things for you, but you don't need to memorize the actions. If it helps you figure out what we're talking about when we're talking about the names, then please do remember the actions, because that's how I actually learned it too, is by remembering how the word is split up and how that is fitting in with the skeletal system and how they act, how they work, whether it's flexing or elevating or extending, whatever. They're all named for a reason, right? So if you just try to memorize names and regions, it's like, it's just really hard. If you can memorize why they're named the way they are, it makes it much more simple to understand the physiology and the anatomy.